Hello, everybody. I am Tamalinda Lux, author and editor, and you're listening to Unlock Author Genius, the podcast. The podcast about authors who have unlocked their genius and overcome self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviors, fears, and negative self-talk. The podcast is geared to authors who are stuck in some way on their journey to finishing writing and publishing their books. Today, we're talking about self-sabotaging thoughts and negative self-talk. Have you ever had the thought, who am I to write a book? Okay, that's imposter syndrome. Or I'm not a writer. That can fall into the perfectionism category. Or perhaps you've had the thought, I'm afraid no one will care about my book. That's fear of judgment. And I'm afraid my book will upset people. That's judgment. Or what about negative self-talk? Have you ever had the thought, I don't have a book in me? Or I'm afraid my book isn't original enough? Or I'm afraid my book won't be good enough? Well, today, our guest, Bob Gonzalez, author of A Flicker in the Water, will talk about how he overcame the belief that no one would be interested in reading his book. And when writing his book, Bob Gonzalez had the negative self-talk, no one will care about my book, which is also considered as, what if no one reads it? And yet he overcame that limiting self-belief. And I want to know how he did that. So on today's podcast, we'll discuss how Bob Gonzalez overcame this challenge. So thanks, Bob, for joining us. And I'm just going to pop up your screen there. There you are. Welcome.
Hi, Tamalinda. How are you?
Great. Thanks for joining me.
Sure.
So just let me just give the brief introduction, your bio that you shared with me. Bob was raised in Northeast Pennsylvania and moved to Florida in his 20s, where he began to indulge in his love of deep sea fishing, the stories of which became the inspiration for his book, A Flicker in the Water, Inside the Tales. So, Bob, this is fantastic. Show us your book, please. Fantastic. That even says autographs.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the image on the book there?
It's a Goliath grouper. It's the largest grouper in the grouper family. We catch them here in Florida. This particular one on the cover comes from the Netherlands in a tourist museum.
Wow. And can you eat these?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's that behind you on the wall there?
That is this shoulder.
That's it. Yeah.
That's a red snapper that we caught in a spot we didn't even expect to fish that day. We found him by accident, and he turned out to be 42 pounds, which was only 4 pounds shy of the state record.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have no knowledge of deep sea fishing other than you're on a boat and you have special fishing rods attached to the boat. Is that right?
Yeah, we have rods and we have depth finders and sonars and things like that.
Okay. Fantastic. So depth finders, let's dive into how you overcame the challenge you had. But first, I'd like to know what's important to you about writing for your readers.
Well, I want them to be entertained. I want them to hopefully learn something new like I did while I was writing my book. There were some things even after fishing in the Gulf of Mexico for 20 years that I still learned while I was writing, which surprised me. And it's like, wow, it just took me totally by surprise. And not only the Gulf of Mexico, but other oceans in the world. Like I'll give you a couple of examples. The Mediterranean Sea between Spain and Morocco there in the Strait of Gibraltar is the only way in and out of the Mediterranean Sea, and it's only 11 miles wide. I didn't know that. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, stunning, right?
Stunning.
Yeah, I was shocked. I thought, how do fish get in and out of there? Because the Mediterranean is huge. It's like 2/3 the size of the Gulf of Mexico. It's wide. How do they get in and out of there? But yeah, and I also learned that the Sea of Galilee is a freshwater lake. I thought it was a saltwater body, but it's not. It's freshwater in northern Israel, which I didn't know either. Yeah.
So are you fishing in both saltwater and freshwater?
It's mostly saltwater what I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is this your first book?
Second book. I have a book of poems. This is more personal to me though, so this is my baby, The Flicker in the Water.
How long did it take to write it?
About a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so that was the writing it, and then the editing and the publishing. How long did
Yeah,
that take?
the whole thing, writing, editing, publishing, everything took about a year. It was even for my work. My book is only 146 pages, which is like a novella type, and even that had to be. It took like 7 or 8 months of the actual writing to get it right. I didn't want to just put something out there. I wanted it just right.
How important is that to you to get it just right, and not just put something out there? How important was that to you?
100% important. I'd rather wait and get. I mean, I was anxious to get it out there finally, but I wanted to wait and get it out there right because I knew that once it was out there, it's hard to take back. So I wanted to make sure everything was done right.
So as you had some excitement to get it out there, but also the wanting to get it right part. So there's that balance, right?
Oh yeah.
How did you balance that?
Well, I had to read it, and reread it. If I went through probably 4 or 5 or 6 drafts before I was finally satisfied with the one I wanted, and that takes time, And it's for me, for most writers, but I think this holds true. But definitely for me, step away from the work for a while, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even a month. Come back to it. You read it fresher, and you come up with some more ideas. The way I write the book is that you write the sentence, and it feels like a plant growing. You keep watering the plant, and you watch it grow on the paper, and that's a great feeling.
Oh, I love that analogy. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. Write the sentence and then watch it grow.
Yeah. The sentence is your seed. And then the word, and you keep adding to it. It's like watering it. And it just grows like you're watching a tree grow. It's great. It's terrific.
So I love that too. So stepping away for a couple of weeks and then coming back and you have a fresh perspective.
Definitely. Yeah.
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 So how did you first recognize that you were experiencing that obstacle or challenge of no one would be interested in reading my book?
Well, I figured I just even the most accomplished authors have self-doubt. You'd be surprised. Some of the biggest names out there in literature didn't think anybody would want to read their books either. They persevered through the pain, and they got them out there, which, happens to me. I had college professors tell me in school 20 some years ago that I wrote really well, but I never took it seriously. So, and I never thought about publishing a book because I had that, who would want to read a book from me? So finally I did it, and I persisted through the pain, and it's out there.
You persisted through the pain.
Yeah.
How did you persist? Did you step away? Did you dive deeper?
A little of both. Like I said, I stepped away, but then when I went to do the work, I really got into it and just kept writing and writing and writing. It's like the water faucet. You turn the water on and it keeps running. So keep running until the flow stops, and then you can turn it off, step away, and then come back.
So as you were writing, like the water coming out of the faucet, that reminds me of freestyle writing. Just set your timer for 15 minutes and just keep writing. Even if the words are ugh, you keep. Did you use that technique at all?
Sometimes, the words will start to flow if you focus on the subject, get yourself in the mood to do it. Think about what you're writing. Don't be distracted by other things. Focus on your work, and usually you'll get something good out of it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. One of the comments you made when we were communicating initially about having you on the Unlock Author Genius podcast is, the strategy you tried to overcome the obstacle, but your comment here was, you're just as worthy of telling your story as anyone else.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Reading other authors' works, you can see that they write really well. And if you figure it's a lot of self-talk, you figure if they can do it, I can do it. So that's the approach that I took.
We could have the podcast right there. If they can do it, I can do it, right?
Yeah. I've heard several authors say things like that.
Yeah. I really truly believe everyone's voice matters. And that's why I'm building a global community
Mm-hmm.
championing stuck authors
Mm-hmm.
to move past whatever it is holding them back so
Uh-huh.
that they can
Mm-hmm.
achieve
Mm-hmm.
success in publishing,
Mm-hmm.
and allowing their voice to be heard
Mm-hmm.
on page, on
Mm-hmm.
ebook,
Mm-hmm.
and also audio, right? But allowing their voice to be heard, that's a legacy they can leave
Yeah.
the world.
That's
Isn't
definitely a
that
thought I
something?
had while I was doing it, and I was doing a subject that I love, so it came easy to me.
Isn't
Yeah,
that so important?
yeah,
What kind of
yeah,
subject you
yeah,
love?
yeah. That's very important. If you write what you really love, it'll come across in the work, and the reader will pick up on that.
Another question I have for you is, did you ever seek help from a therapist or coach to address the obstacle of no one would be interested in reading my book?
No, not really. It was a lot of self-talk. I kind of, pushed my way through it myself.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And you also referenced just a couple moments ago about reflecting about 20 years ago, one of
Yeah,
your teachers having said,
yeah.
what was it they said to
That
you?
that
You
I
write
wrote
really
really
well.
well. Yeah, and I that was always in the front of my mind as I was doing it. I kept telling myself that, so it gave me confidence to go ahead and with what I was doing.
That's what we call, in as a hypnotherapist working with authors to help them, become unstuck and
Mm-hmm.
release the fears. One of the techniques I use is regress to resource state,
Mm-hmm.
which is what you did
Yeah,
on your own with your
yeah,
self-talk,
yeah.
is you remembered a
Mm-hmm.
time when you had a
Yeah,
teacher tell
yeah,
you write really
yeah,
well.
yeah,
And so just for a moment there, when you think back to the time when the teacher told you, Bob, you write really well,
yeah.
can you imagine just for a moment and tell me what that feeling is for you when you heard that from your teacher?
Well, it definitely stuck. 20 years later, and I still think about it. So, yeah, it's nice to be praised like that. It goes a long way in getting the best out of you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It's nice to be praised. And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, we want to be able to stand on our own
Mm-hmm.
firm foundation of confidence,
Mm-hmm.
and yet we're human.
Yeah.
And,
Mm,
praise helps.
yeah. One thing that helped me too is my subject deals with nature, and in nature you have a better connection to yourself. And I think because it was the outdoors and nature, I felt like almost like a spiritual effort in what I was doing.
Oh my goodness. So
Yeah.
did you ever write outside? Where was your writing spot?
Sometimes right on my computer. Other times, if I had ideas, I'd be out on my phone and I would get them down. And then sometimes it was indoors, sometimes outdoors. Mostly indoors, though, probably. But I
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
envisioned myself being out there. In my mind, I was out there,
right.
reliving some experiences.
Oh, fantastic. And
Mhm.
that also reminds me of hypnotic meditation I was
Mhm.
recording earlier this morning for our Facebook group, Unlock
Mhm.
Author Genius. Um, was going into your outdoor retreat
Mhm.
to uh, embrace and know your unique voice.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and like you're saying, sometimes you even imagined yourself being
Mhm.
outdoors
Mhm.
while you were indoors
Yeah.
working on your book.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
We also spoke moments ago about you're a pencil and pen
Yeah.
kind of guy. Tell me more about that.
I like pencil. I like pens. I like postage stamps, and the technology stuff just like it does for other. It drives me up a wall a lot of times. I look at it. A lot of people look at it as part of the work, which I guess it is nowadays. The technology and all that stuff is part of the work. I look at it as getting in the way. But I guess you can't look at it like that. It is nowadays. It is part of the work, but I like to write my name and then put it on a postage stamp, mail it, and off it goes.
And off it goes.
Yeah,
Regular old, I call it snail mail, or
yeah,
when
yeah,
I'm receiving
yeah,
things, postcards and letters, I call it mailbox joy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I still
Yeah,
use email and all that stuff. You have to these days, but there's
yeah.
something to be said for the pen and the paper.
So speaking of pen and paper and the postage stamp and the book, show us your book again, please.
Um,
Yeah, that's so fantastic. And it says autographed copy.
yeah.
So are you selling your book on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay. And Do you have a method for sending an autograph something to your readers?
Well, they can email me. My email is on my website. They can email me through the website, and if they want an autographed copy, I can definitely send them one or
Yeah,
more.
yeah. I've heard the technique, and actually received it from an author that I follow, where they will send a book plate, a signed
Mhm.
book plate, that
Yeah,
then you can
yeah.
paste into the book
Right,
you've
right,
already
right.
got,
Yeah,
which means a little less postage for
that's
me as
right.
the
Yeah,
author,
yeah, yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Another question I have is the support or advice from other authors or author groups. Are you part of any author networking group, like
Well,
either locally or online?
yeah, I have friends that are authors that we talk about our books and we help share information to each other and that sort of thing. I also got some kind words from Mariel Hemingway, which helped a lot too. She wrote the foreword for my book, and
Oh,
yeah, yeah, and she said the book spoke to her with a deep sense of appreciation, which meant a lot to me and gave me even more confidence.
oh, I'll bet. Would you like to read the forward?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. She says, okay, forward by Mariel Hemingway. Having grown up in a family that loved to fish, this book spoke to me at a deep level of appreciation. My father, the first son of world-renowned author Ernest Hemingway, has a story of fishing from his childhood that I knew well because my father, Jack Hemingway, made it known that this story, which I'm about to tell you, is the reason he fished nearly every day of his life, when he finally came of age and was quote unquote allowed to fish. Let me explain. My father was raised the first 10 years of his life in Paris, France, and his father left him and my grandmother, Hadley, when he was only 2 years old. But Papa, as Ernest was called, visited my dad annually as a child and took him to the fishing streams and beaches that he loved the most. The interesting thing is that when he visited my dad, he took Bumpy. That's my dad's most embarrassing nickname, according to dad. Fishing, only Papa fished. He wouldn't allow his son to do anything but watch. For years, my father watched his dad fly fish and deep sea fish off the deck of the Pilar, which he acquired when he moved to Cuba and when my father visited him there. But until he was around 16 or 17, he was only allowed to watch his father fish. As you can imagine, a boy yearning to learn and become good at something, those years of watching created a desire to fish in my dad that couldn't be satiated right up until the end of his life. My dad's watching spawned, pun intended, a deep understanding of the water, whether fresh or salt water, and a true understanding of the fish and what they wanted to eat and what time of day they wanted it. My dad became a world-renowned fisherman. He fished around the world and fished most days of his life, even when I was growing up in a small town in Idaho. Fishing, as my dad taught me over the years and his father taught him, is more about the experience, the water, the fresh air, the temperature, the stillness or the current, and of course the landscape or seascape that surrounds you than it is about hauling fish onto the deck. There is a zen to fishing that speaks only to those who have gone out into the water and experienced everything about the environment they are in. You are a visitor when you are out on the ocean. It is a world you must respect and honor as far more powerful than any man. The sea belongs and is run by the creatures that live and survive there. Bob Gonzalez's book is a homage to fishermen and their need to explore the water, especially when deep sea fishing. It is a sport, of course, but for fishermen, it is a religion. So bravo to Bob Gonzalez for this poignant window into the world of the deep sea and the extraordinary fish that call it home. A Flicker in the Water is a telling title to the stories that emerge from that flicker. I tip my hat to Bob Gonzalez, to my dad, and to my grandfather, who also see the flickers of the water as a symbol of the men they wanted to be, men who spoke the language of the water. Mariel Hemingway.
Oh my goodness. Congratulations on
Oh,
receiving such a beautiful forward.
well,
What was
thank
that
you very
like
much.
when you received that?
Oh, I mean, it's I still think about it. It gives me chills. I'll remember that, as long as I'm here.
Yeah, of course. Um, that's an obstacle. That brings up another fear that I know that some author clients have said, I'd love to have a forward from so and so, but
Mhm,
oh my gosh, I can't ask them. How would I even
mhm.
think about asking them? How did you ask? How did you do
Well,
this?
she works with my publisher, Mindster Media, and they put the scripts before her. If she likes them, she'll write a forward for them. And she's very picky, though. She chooses the ones that she wants. And I was lucky enough that she liked mine, so she went ahead and did it, and I'm grateful.
Of course, yes, of course, grateful. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Let me just think here about another question. What? Okay, so I know we've kind of picked little pieces here and there, and I loved how she said fish the zen. There's a zen to fishing, right?
Yeah.
Zen to fishing. There's also a zen to writing.
Definitely. Oh yeah. Yeah. It was like it transferred from my soul to the paper, which was an unbelievable feeling for me.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to other authors who are struggling with the original thought that my book won't be of interest to anybody?
Find something you love to write about or are passionate about, and if you do, it'll help you remove those when you get those feelings of doubt, which I still get from time to time. And everybody else does too. Ernest used to have them also. There's plenty of quotes from him saying, he's not a good writer anymore. So it happens to everybody.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So we're coming near the end of our episode, Bob. Can you just read a paragraph or two from your book, something that you've written in your book,
Sure.
please?
I'll read you the first page. How's that?
Yes.
The water was brightly lit, reflecting the tuna's iridescent colors off of their elongated, muscular bodies as we arrived at sunset. Getting to the offshore oil rigs, our fishing destination, had been no easy journey. An 8-hour trek through an unpredictable yet calm sea. On the way, we had managed to land a bull dolphin. In Spanish, they're called dorado, an apt name that perfectly captures the golden essence of their beautiful multicolored skin tone with different vibrant shades of blue, green, and a striking yellow, capped off by a flat, square, bulging head, creating a color combination as diverse and beautiful as any fish in the sea. Most know them as mahi-mahi, a Hawaiian term that means very strong. The bull, a male, had a companion with him, a female called a cow. Male lions are the kings of the jungle, but in the world's oceans, females wear the crown, reigning supreme. Captain Mike had made the trip many times before, but even an experienced seaman cannot help getting those butterflies in the pit of his stomach as the departure time draws closer. The excited anticipation of what could happen, good or bad, when leaving the dock is a different, yet no less satisfying feeling than a successful trip's return. Filling coolers with ice, rigging bait, setting the rods and reels to the proper length and drags are all necessary tasks to be done ahead of time, because as any fisherman knows, you want to be ready when you get that make or break strike, which, as every fisherman who has ever told tales also knows happens each time you put your baits in the water. Doing these required tasks for the Twister's crew team would be Troby, known as Drawbridge to his friends. Drawbridge was an experienced fisherman who had more stories to tell than Popeye the Sailor Man, only he did not derive his strength from spinach. Drawbridge was a jovial fellow with the look of an experienced fisherman written on the lines of his face, who, like many seamen, had an unquenchable thirst for the suds, which often led to some amusing and at times not so amusing circumstances.
Oh my goodness, thank you. That very descriptive. I felt at moments I was there, and there's also so much humor in there, and including the Popeye reference, and also the butterflies in the pit of the stomach. I would be feeling that if I were on a fishing boat.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Tell us where guests can contact you.
Well, my website is the one place fits all place to go. It's called flickerinthewater.com. My links to Amazon and Barnes & Noble are there. My email are there. There are some videos there, and also some interesting things that are not in the book are on the website. So I definitely go to the website.
Fantastic. And I have taken a peek there. Thank you very much. So thank you for joining me today and sharing your author journey with us. And thank you to our listeners. I hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave a thumbs up and review. And be sure to subscribe to receive future podcasts from our authors who have unlocked their author genius tips and secrets so that you can unlock your own author genius. You can visit my website at unlockauthorgenius.com, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, Tammy Linda.